I never thought one simple wish could flip my entire world upside down, but that night it did, and it hit me harder than anything I had ever felt. It wasn't the request itself. It wasn't the price of the car. It was the way Ethan looked at me after I said it, a look I had never seen before, a look that made my heart start trembling long before he even opened his mouth. It all began on a calm Friday evening. The sky outside our apartment had turned a deep bluish gold, the kind of color that makes you feel like something magical or something dangerous is about to happen. I was curled up on the couch with my laptop open, watching a luxury lifestyle vlog where the host surprised his girlfriend with the newest Rolls-Royce Phantom. The doors opened like wings, the seats glowed like stardust, the interior looked more expensive than most people's houses. It didn't feel like a car. It felt like a kingdom on wheels. And for a moment, for one long breath, I imagined myself sitting inside it. I imagined the soft leather touching my skin, the quiet hum of the engine, the sense of royalty. I imagined Ethan beside me, smiling proudly, driving me through the city like I was the only girl in the universe. Maybe it was silly, maybe it was unrealistic, but the feeling didn't leave me. It grew. It crawled deeper. It became a desire I felt in my chest. So when Ethan walked into the living room adjusting his watch after a long day at work, I closed my laptop, looked at him, and said, "Babe, can I ask you something?" He smiled gently, the tired kind of smile that always melted me. "Of course, what's up?" I hesitated for a second. Then I let the words slip out. I want a Rolls-Royce Phantom." The smile froze on his face. Completely. His eyes didn't blink. His jaw tightened almost invisibly. The air around us changed like someone had suddenly dimmed the lights inside the room. My heart skipped. I wasn't expecting a yes, and I wasn't demanding anything, but his reaction wasn't normal. It felt heavy, cold, quiet, like I had done something terribly wrong without knowing it. "Anna, what did you say?" His voice was calm but too controlled, as if he was trying very hard not to let something show. "I said I want a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Not right away, just someday. I don't know. It just makes me feel like I want something big for myself." I tried to laugh lightly but the sound fell flat. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Then he slowly walked toward me. His footsteps felt heavier than normal, not angry but serious in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Come with me," he said. 2 words. Sharp. Firm. Final. He didn't grab my wrist roughly, but his hold was serious enough to make my heartbeat race. He guided me toward the bedroom, and my chest tightened. I didn't know if he was upset, disappointed, confused, or something even deeper. When he closed the door behind us, he didn't look at me immediately. He just stood there, leaning against the door, breathing like he was trying to process something big. Then he finally spoke, his voice low. "Anna, why do you want that car so badly? What are you really trying to say?" And right then, I realized this wasn't about a car. This was about something much bigger. Sometimes a single question can shake your entire sense of reality, and that's exactly what his words did to me that night. I stood there in the silent room feeling like the walls had shifted around us. His question wasn't loud but the weight in it pressed against my chest. I opened my mouth to answer yet nothing came out because even I didn't fully understand what was happening inside me. Wanting a luxury car wasn't new in this world. People dreamed big every day. So why did Ethan look at me like I had asked for something impossible or something dangerous? He stepped closer, not angry but deeply serious in a way that made my stomach tighten. "Anna, talk to me," he said. "Why a Rolls-Royce? Why now? This isn't like you." I exhaled slowly. "I don't know. I just felt like I wanted something grand. Something that makes me feel different. My voice sounded small to my own ears. Everyone around us is leveling up. New cars, new apartments, new lives. I'm working hard. I'm trying so much. And sometimes it feels like I'm standing still while the world keeps moving ahead. He watched me closely. So you think a phantom will fix that feeling? It's not about fixing, I whispered. It's about feeling seen. Feeling like I'm worth something big too. For a moment he didn't speak. His face softened, but there was a shadow behind his eyes, a shadow of worry. He sat on the edge of the bed and gestured for me to sit beside him. I did, my heart pounding because I could sense something emotional coming. Anna, I get wanting nice things, he said. I get wanting to feel special or successful. But you're talking like you measure your worth with someone else's lifestyle. You're talking like you're losing yourself. His words pierced deeper than I expected. It wasn't judgment. It was concern. Deep, genuine concern. I'm not losing myself, I muttered. I just want to feel like I'm becoming someone. You already are someone, he said in a quiet voice. You're my someone. That line hit me unexpectedly and my eyes burned for a second. I looked away to steady myself. But then something in his tone shifted. Something I didn't catch earlier. Anna, there's something you need to know, he murmured. My heartbeat stopped for a moment. What do you mean? He rubbed the back of his neck like he was preparing to reveal something he had held inside for too long. The way you asked for that car, it reminded me of something from my past. Something I never told you. I stiffened. His past? What did a Rolls-Royce have to do with it? He continued before I could ask. Someone I loved once made me feel like no matter how much I did, no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. She always wanted more, bigger, better. And eventually it wasn't about the gifts anymore. It was about the fear that I wasn't enough. My breath caught as the meaning sank in. So when you said you wanted a phantom, it hit something inside me, he confessed. And it scared me. The room suddenly felt smaller as emotions wrapped around both of us. This wasn't about a car. This was about a fear that had been hiding in his heart long before I ever made the request. Sometimes the past doesn't knock before entering the present. It walks right in and sits between two people, and that's exactly what happened in that moment. The room felt heavier as Ethan's confession settled into the space between us. I stared at him, trying to understand the pain behind his calm voice. I had always known he carried a few emotional scars, but I never imagined one simple request could peel one open so easily. He kept his eyes on the floor like he was afraid to see my reaction. I gently placed my hand on his arm, hoping it would pull him back to me. Ethan. I didn't know, I whispered. I know you didn't. His voice sounded tired but not angry. It's just that when you asked for the phantom it felt like history repeating itself. And I panicked. I nodded slowly, letting his words sink deeper. But I'm not her, I said softly. He finally looked up, meeting my eyes. I know that too. But the feeling came before the logic. There was something heartbreaking in the way he said it. Like he had been fighting a quiet battle inside him for years. I shifted a little closer so he could feel that I was right beside him, not drifting away. Ethan, I didn't ask for the car to test you or pressure you, I said. I asked because I wanted to share a dream with you. Something we could maybe work toward someday. Not today. Not tomorrow. Just someday. He studied me carefully, as if trying to determine whether he should believe that or not. But why a phantom of all things? He asked again. I took a breath. Because it symbolized something big to me. Not the price. Not the luxury. It represented a moment where I felt like I was enough to deserve something grand. A feeling I don't get often. His expression softened as he absorbed that. You really feel that way? He asked gently. More than you think, I answered. I've been pushing myself so hard lately trying to keep up with life. And sometimes it feels like being appreciated needs a physical form. Like a reward. Like a milestone. He closed his eyes for a moment then nodded slowly. I get that, he said. I really do. A quiet stillness filled the room. Not tense this time, but thoughtful, almost fragile. I lifted his hand so our fingers intertwined. You don't have to fear that I'll ever be like her, I whispered. I don't measure you by what you buy for me. I measure you by how you love me. He exhaled deeply like those words finally gave him space to breathe. I just didn't want to lose you to a version of you that only chases things, he admitted. And I don't want to lose you to a version of you that's afraid of my dreams, I replied. That line made him sit up straighter. Not defensively, but with awareness. We had reached a delicate point in our story. A point where honesty wasn't an option but a necessity. He squeezed my hand gently. Maybe we both have some things to learn about each other, he said. I nodded. Maybe this conversation needed to happen more than I realized. And for the first time that night, the weight between us started to shift into something lighter. It's strange how one conversation can expose the parts of two hearts that were hiding in silence, and that night those hidden parts finally stepped into the light. Ethan leaned back slightly as if letting his guard down for the first time since the argument began. I watched the way his shoulders softened and how the tension around his eyes slowly faded. It felt like we had walked through a storm together and were finally standing in the calm that follows. I took a quiet breath, feeling safer than before because now we were talking about the truth, not assumptions. He brushed his thumb over my hand. Anna, I'm sorry if I reacted too quickly. I didn't mean to make you feel guilty for wanting something. I shook my head. You didn't make me feel guilty. You made me realize something about myself. I've been searching for a feeling more than an object. Maybe the phantom was just a symbol of that search. He nodded thoughtfully. And I reacted because I didn't want to feel like I was failing you. That line hit deeper than I expected. You could never fail me by not buying something, I said. You only fail me if you stop understanding me. He looked up at me with a soft, almost vulnerable expression. Then tell me what you need me to understand right now. I paused for a moment, choosing my words carefully. I need you to know that I'm trying to feel worthy of something great in life. Not because I'm empty, but because I'm tired of feeling like every step I take goes unnoticed. I wanted the idea of the phantom to be a reminder that I can achieve something big someday. He listened with full attention, no interruption, no judgment. And I want you to know, he replied, that I'm trying to protect what we have. When you asked for something that huge, my mind jumped to the worst possibilities. I thought maybe I wasn't enough for the life you want. I moved closer until our knees touched. You are enough. You've always been enough. I just didn't know how to communicate what I was feeling. He lifted my chin gently so I'd look at him. Then from now on, talk to me. Even if the feelings sound messy or complicated. I want to hear them. Okay, I whispered. For a long moment we sat in comfortable silence, letting our hearts adjust to this new clarity. I felt something inside me settle, like a piece of me that had been drifting finally returned home. Ethan reached over and pulled me into a soft hug, his arms wrapping around me with a warmth that made the room feel brighter. You know, he murmured against my hair, dreams don't scare me. What scares me is thinking you believe I wouldn't support them. I pulled back slightly and smiled. Support doesn't always mean buying something. Sometimes support is just listening like you're doing now. He nodded with a small smile of his own. Then I'm here. Listening. Always. For the first time that evening there was no heaviness between us, only understanding and a quiet promise that the conversation had shifted something important. We were still figuring things out, but now we were doing it together, not from opposite sides. Sometimes the biggest shock in life arrives when you think you already know the person standing beside you. That night I felt a strange shift inside me, like something deeper was waiting to surface, and I had no clue whether it would save us or destroy everything between us. Jay opened the door of the penthouse slowly, and the moment we stepped inside I realized something was different. The lights were dim, but not in a romantic way. It felt almost heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. I watched him walk ahead with this silent determination, and for the first time there was no playful smile, no teasing, no warmth in his eyes. It scared me more than anything else. I followed him, unsure of what was coming. The city lights glowed through the giant glass walls, but even those felt distant. Jay stopped near the living room table, picked up a small velvet box and held it for a moment before turning to me. His expression was unreadable, and I hated that I could not predict what he was about to say. He finally spoke, and his voice was softer than I expected, which somehow made it worse. He said he understood that dreams matter and he wanted me to feel special, but he also wanted honesty between us, because without honesty no luxury in the world could keep a relationship alive. I stood completely still because every word hit me like a truth I had been running from. I had been chasing the idea of a perfect lifestyle without noticing how much pressure it put on him. Jay opened the velvet box slowly, and I felt my heartbeat jump. Inside was not jewelry, not a car key, nothing flashy. It was a simple metal key attached to a small heart-shaped tag engraved with our initials. I couldn't understand what it meant until he explained that it belonged to a place he had been building secretly for months, a place meant for both of us, a home, not just a luxury space, but something built with real emotion, real intention, and real commitment. I didn't know how to react. I had been asking for a Rolls-Royce Phantom, thinking that was the next step of feeling valued, but he had been creating something far more meaningful. I felt a wave of guilt and love crash inside me at the same time. When he took my hand and said he wanted a life with me, but he needed to know my heart was with him, not with material things, I felt tears burning behind my eyes. I stepped closer, placed my hand on his chest, and told him I was sorry. Not because he made me feel guilty, but because I realized I had forgotten what truly mattered. For a moment the whole room softened again, like the tension melted away, leaving only truth between us. But the story was far from over, because as soon as he said he wanted to show me the place he built, my entire world tilted again, and I had no idea what surprise waited next. Sometimes the moment you think you finally understand what is happening, life flips the script again, and that night felt exactly like that. My heartbeat was loud in my ears as Jay held the key in his hand and told me to come with him, because there was something I needed to see, something that would change everything about how I looked at us. We left the penthouse and went down to the private parking area where his black Maybach was waiting. The air outside felt colder than usual, like the night itself knew something important was about to unfold. Jay opened the door for me, but he didn't say a single word, and that silence felt heavier than any argument we ever had. When he finally started driving, I kept glancing at him, trying to read anything on his face, but he stayed focused, like he was carrying a decision he wasn't sure how I would react to. The city passed by in streaks of neon and streetlight, and every mile felt like the tension was tightening around my chest. After about 30 minutes he turned into a quieter part of town where tall buildings faded into peaceful streets and newly built homes. The car stopped in front of a modern 2-story house with soft warm lights glowing from inside. My breath caught, because it looked like one of those homes you save on your vision board but never expect to see in reality. Jay stepped out, walked to my side, opened the door, and without saying anything placed the key in my hand. My fingers closed around it automatically, but my mind struggled to catch up. I followed him toward the house, feeling the slight tremble in my hands, because I knew something big was coming. When he unlocked the door and pushed it open, the sight inside made me freeze. It wasn't empty. It wasn't half done. It wasn't under construction. It was fully finished, beautifully decorated with soft colors, a warm ambience, and details that felt personal to both of us. A framed photo on the shelf, the scent of the vanilla candle. I loved the style of sofa. I always talked about the exact layout I once sketched while dreaming about a future home. Every corner felt like a piece of my heart was already living here. I could barely breathe when he turned to me and said he had been building this for months because he wanted to give me a life where we felt safe together, where love mattered more than luxury, and where dreams were shared, not demanded. Hearing him say that made my chest ache with a mix of gratitude and guilt. He had been planning a future with me while I was busy imagining a Rolls-Royce. I felt tears rising, but before I could speak he added something that made my entire body go still. He said there was one more thing I had to know, and once he told me it would decide everything about our future. There are moments when the world seems to stop moving, when even your heartbeat pauses as if it wants to listen before anything else, and standing inside that quiet warm house I felt exactly that. Jay looked at me with a seriousness I had rarely seen in him, and for the first time I felt fear, not the kind that comes from danger, but the kind that comes when you know someone is about to tell you a truth that will change you. He walked deeper into the living room and I followed slowly, taking in every detail around me because everything looked too perfect, too thoughtful, too personal. The soft carpet felt warm under my feet, the dim lights cast a golden glow across the room, and the faint scent of vanilla still drifted from the candle on the table. Jay stopped near the staircase and turned to face me, and the silence between us grew heavy enough to feel physical. He told me that the house wasn't something he bought on impulse or used his endless resources for. He said he had worked on it piece by piece, making decisions slowly, choosing everything carefully because he wanted it to reflect both of us, not just him. He wanted me to walk in and feel seen and understood and valued, not bought or impressed, and hearing that made my chest tighten with something deeper than guilt. It felt like love in its rawest form, and I knew I hadn't been giving that back to him. When he finally spoke the words he had been holding back, he admitted something that made my throat close. He said the day I asked him for the Rolls-Royce Phantom he didn't get angry because of the request, he got scared because he thought he was losing me to a world that valued money more than feelings. He told me he didn't want to become another guy in my life who thought gifts could replace emotions or who used luxury to distract from what really mattered. He stepped a little closer and said that he bought the Phantom for me not because I demanded it, but because he wanted to show me he wasn't afraid of giving me the world. But he also said that before giving it to me he needed to know something important. He needed to know whether I wanted him or the lifestyle he could provide, and those words hit me harder than anything I expected. It felt like someone held up a mirror and I had to face the truth I had been avoiding. I swallowed hard because every memory of our arguments, every moment I pushed for more, every time I tied happiness to expensive things came rushing back. I felt a wave of regret wash over me because at that moment I knew I had been chasing the wrong thing without even realizing it. Jay reached up, took my hand gently, and said he planned this night so he could see my reaction, not to the car but to the home he built for us with love, not money. And then he asked me the question that made my eyes sting with tears. He asked whether I wanted a relationship built on dreams or one built on demands. There are times when a single question feels louder than a scream, and Jay's question echoed inside me so powerfully that I forgot how to breathe for a moment. I stood there holding his hand, feeling my heartbeat rise, not from fear but from the realization that I was standing at a crossroads, one path shaped by desire for luxury and the other shaped by something far deeper than anything material. My voice refused to come out, so I just looked at him, hoping he could see the answer in my eyes even before I spoke it. He waited quietly, letting me gather every thought running wild inside me. The room felt warm and still, almost sacred, like this moment was meant to decide everything about us. When I finally managed to speak, the words slipped out softer than I expected. I told him I never wanted to hurt him, and I never wanted him to feel like he wasn't enough, because he always was more than enough. I said I didn't fall in love with him because of what he could buy. I fell in love with him because of how he made me feel seen, understood, and safe, and somewhere along the way I let shiny things blur the truth. I felt tears fill my eyes, but I didn't look away because Jay deserved honesty, not excuses. I told him that maybe the world we lived in made luxury seem like the measure of love, but the reality was that he had given me something far more precious than anything expensive. He gave me a place where my heart didn't have to pretend, and a connection that felt like home even before he showed me that house. Speaking those words felt like opening a locked door inside me and letting everything real finally come out. Jay listened without interrupting, his expression softening slowly as if my words were untying knots inside him too. When I finished talking, he gently wiped the tears from my face and told me something that made my heart tremble. He said he wasn't testing me to see whether I deserved him, he was testing himself because he wanted to be sure he was loving me right. He wanted to give me everything without losing the meaning behind it, and he wanted a relationship that didn't rely on proving anything with price tags. For the first time that evening I felt the weight between us shift, not heavier but lighter, as if honesty had cleared the air completely. He led me further into the house, showing me each room, and every space felt like a chapter of our story written in paint, furniture, and soft light. He had placed little details everywhere that connected back to us, like the framed photo from our first trip together and the books we used to read on late nights. Each corner felt like a promise made quietly without needing grand gestures. As I walked through the house, I felt something new growing inside me, a warmth that wasn't about luxury but about belonging. It felt like stepping into a future built not with money but with intention and love, and I knew this place was more than a house. It was a reflection of what we could become together. Some moments don't feel real until you feel them settle in your chest, and the moment Jay placed the house key into my palm, it felt like my entire world paused for a second. I stared at that single key resting against my skin, and it felt heavier than anything I had ever held, not because of its weight but because of what it meant. A key wasn't just a piece of metal. It was trust. It was commitment. It was him silently telling me I wasn't standing in his life as a guest anymore. I was standing in it as someone who belonged. I looked up at him, searching his eyes for any hesitation, but there wasn't any. His expression was steady, warm, filled with a calm certainty that made my heart thump harder. I wanted to say something, but my thoughts were tangled, so instead I just closed my fingers around the key, holding it like it was something fragile and precious. Jay stepped closer, his voice lowering as he told me that he didn't want our relationship to be defined by the cars we wished for or the things I dreamed of owning. He wanted our relationship to be defined by us, by what we built, by what we felt, and by the life we were slowly stitching together without even realizing it. I felt a deep push inside me, as if something old was falling away, making space for something new. Being with him in that half-lit room surrounded by soft shadows and warmth made me understand the meaning of intimacy in a way luxury never could. I wasn't thinking about Rolls-Royces or expensive dreams anymore. I was thinking about mornings in this house with him, evenings on the couch, nights where silence didn't feel empty but peaceful. I hadn't expected any of this when I first made that impulsive demand, but now standing here I felt like I had stumbled into something far more meaningful. Jay took my hand again, guiding me through the rest of the house until we reached the back porch where cool night air brushed against our skin. The city lights shimmered in the distance, but the space around us felt private and quiet, like it existed just for the two of us. I leaned against the railing, breathing deeply, letting the night settle inside me. Jay stood beside me, his arm brushing mine, and the nearness felt grounding. He told me he had been afraid when I asked for the Rolls-Royce, not because of the price but because he feared he wasn't giving me a life that felt big enough for my dreams. Hearing that broke something gentle inside me, because all this time I thought I was the one disappointing him. I turned toward him and told him the truth, that I didn't need something as grand as a Phantom to feel loved. I needed exactly what he had given me tonight. A sense of future. A place where my heart could rest. A connection that didn't disappear the moment things got hard. In that moment he reached for my waist, pulling me a little closer, and the warmth of his touch spread through me like a quiet fire. Everything felt still, everything felt certain. For the first time I wasn't thinking ahead or worrying about what came next. I was simply there with him in a moment that felt like the beginning of something we both secretly hoped for. Some realizations arrived quietly but hit harder than any loud moment ever could, and as I stood on that porch with Jay, the truth settled inside me like a slow, warm tide. I had been chasing the feeling of being valued through things, through luxury, through symbols I thought would make me feel important, but the moment he placed that house key in my hand I understood something I had been blind to for so long. Love had been standing right in front of me, waiting for me to finally notice it. That realization shook me more than any argument or emotional moment we had ever shared. I turned toward Jay, wanting to tell him everything swirling in my heart, but when I saw the softness in his eyes the words tangled again. He stepped closer, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear with a gentleness that made my breath catch. His touch wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was steady, warm, patient. It felt like everything I had spent months searching for had been here all along. I leaned into his hand, letting myself feel the safety of his presence without questioning it, without fighting it. Jay took a slow breath and told me that he had been scared to show me this house because he worried I would think it wasn't enough. He told me he wanted to build a future with me, but he feared his dreams weren't big enough to match mine. Hearing that felt like someone pressed a hand against my chest and held it there, because I had never imagined he felt that kind of insecurity. To me he had always been confident, grounded, sure of himself, but now I realized he was just as afraid of losing me as I was of disappointing him. I reached for his hands, holding them tightly, and told him the truth I should have said months ago. I told him that my desire for luxury wasn't about wanting expensive things. It was about wanting to feel seen, appreciated, valued after years of working non-stop and feeling invisible. I told him I never wanted those things instead of him. I wanted them because I didn't know how to ask for reassurance from the person I loved. The moment the words left my mouth, Jay pulled me into his arms, holding me like he had been waiting to do that for weeks. The tension between us melted a little, and for the first time in a long time the silence didn't feel heavy or distant. It felt warm, safe, almost familiar. He rested his chin lightly on my head and told me he had something else to show me. My heart jumped because every time he had said those words tonight something unexpected had followed. He took my hand again, guiding me inside, and this time I followed him without hesitation, trusting him completely. He stopped in front of a small room near the end of the hallway, one I hadn't noticed earlier. He looked at me with a soft smile, almost shy, and opened the door slowly. What I saw inside made my words vanish, my breath still, and my heartbeat echo in my ears. Some rooms don't just open doors. They open truths and futures all at once. When Jay pushed the door open, the soft light inside revealed something that didn't look like a storage room or a spare guest room. It looked like a dream someone had been quietly building piece by piece. The walls were painted a warm beige with photos of us framed neatly along one side. A small cozy couch sat near the window with fairy lights strung gently across the curtain rod. But the thing that stunned me the most was the item sitting on the center table. The one thing I never expected to see in a moment like this. A small box with a silver ribbon tied around it. The kind of box that could hold anything. Something expensive, something meaningful, or something life-changing. I looked at Jay, but he didn't speak. He simply motioned for me to sit. My heartbeat thundered as I lowered myself onto the couch. My fingers trembled as I reached for the box and slowly lifted the lid. Inside wasn't jewelry or a key or anything fancy. It was a handwritten letter folded into a small square with my name on the front. Somehow that felt heavier than any luxury gift ever could. I opened it and began reading his words, written in the slightly messy handwriting I knew so well. He wrote about how much I meant to him. How he watched me work tirelessly while still caring for everyone around me. How he knew I sometimes felt small in a world that rewarded big flashy things. How he feared I would outgrow him because he didn't shine the same way a Rolls-Royce or a mansion did. And then he wrote the line that melted something deep inside me. He said he wanted to give me a life that felt rich, not a life filled with richness. He wanted to build something slow, steady, and real, something that couldn't be bought or traded. When I finished reading the letter, tears were already streaming down my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming rush of being loved in a way I hadn't felt before. Jay knelt in front of me, wiping my tears with his thumb, and for the first time tonight there was no fear or confusion between us. Only clarity. Only warmth. Only love. He told me the room was meant to be a place for us to dream together. A space to plan our future, whether that meant traveling, building a home, starting something new, or simply learning each other better. He said he didn't want the pressure of gifts to define us. He wanted moments like this to define us. I threw my arms around him without thinking, burying my face in his shoulder, feeling safe in a way I had been craving for months. In that small room full of soft lights and handwritten promises, everything finally made sense. I didn't need a Rolls-Royce Phantom to feel special. I didn't need anything grand to feel valued. What I needed was here. Love that was patient, steady, and real. A partner who didn't just want to impress me but wanted to grow with me. When we pulled apart, he kissed my forehead gently and whispered that he loved me. And for the first time I said it back, not out of habit but out of certainty. That was the moment I knew this chapter of our story wasn't ending. It was only just beginning.